If I say I'm trying, but I have I'm worried about those are symptoms, you know. I know you're good. Don't worry about it. You can hear everybody else. He's telling me these symptoms.
Sandra, you haven't heard from Miss Betty?
No, so she came in this morning and got everything and said, see you tonight.
So she called me. What does it go?
Are we on?
Good evening. I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the veterans and their families, for all that you sacrificed. Good evening, and thank you all for being here with us tonight. This may be a very long meeting. We have a lot to discuss, and I ask that the citizens refrain from speaking out. Hold all comments until after the council has had an opportunity to discuss each of the agenda items. Citizen input is very important to us, but the time for that in respect to our council is at the end of the agenda. If you have not signed up for citizen input and would like to do so, please quietly raise your hand and our city clerk will bring the sign-in sheet to you. At this point, I'm going to open up public hearing. I need a motion. Counselor? Need a motion to open public hearing?
Correct.
Great motion. Okay. Second. Okay, we have seconded. All those in favor? Okay. At this time, Mr. Jerry Weiss, who is our planning zoning officer, is going to basically give the council information on the following variances: V-21-01, V-2102, and V-2103. Mr. Weiss, please.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is Jerry Weiss, consulting planner. I'll mention briefly about the variance request, and then we can open it up for a public hearing. All three of these relate to the same properties, and so I think it's appropriate for you to follow them all together and open them up for hearing together rather than separately. And the first one that they have has to do with this is Well, first of all, this is a subdivision called Ellington Farms that's over off of Sunset Drive, and the property was developed all the way back in 2007, and I won't go through all the facts of the case because there's very many of them. But basically, the first request is that they did not develop the streets with curbs and gutters. And they're all the way at the end of the process, so they're asking for a waiver of the curbs and gutters. Excuse me, ma'am. And the reason for that is that really it should have been required to put in the curb and gutters. I think because there was a code requirement back in 2007 when we developed it. But it wasn't approved that way. The second request has to do with watershed protection. This property drains into the city's Barber Creek, the Barber Creek Reservoir and the water treatment plant there. And the buffer, there's more stringent buffer requirements on anything in the watershed that they're not enforced at the time of development of the subdivision. So they're asking to waive certain impervious surface setbacks and buffer requirements. The third one really is the most, the least, it's the smallest differential, I guess is the way to say it. They're asking for open space requirement reduction, but it's not by very much. These open space subdivisions require 33% open space, and they're shy of that 33%. I'm not sure maybe the applicant can tell you exactly what the percentage is proposed. So those are the three variances of staff. You have staff reports in your packet with all of the findings, and the staff recommendation is for approval of all three of these rezoning requests, variance requests, based on the findings that are in the report. One last thing I'd like to point out was these are supposed to be public streets. And you would, when the final plat comes through, which is now administrative, the approval of that would mean that the city is ultimately going to accept those as public streets. Now, you have a choice because whether or not you, sorry, I don't want to jump too fast. I mean, if you deny the variance for curbs and gutters, then you have to put the curbs and gutters in, and then they would meet standards, and then you could approve them as public streets. My recommendation is that you go ahead and let them, go ahead and plan to accept these roads anyway. If you grant the variance, plan to accept the roads as public streets, even though they don't have the curbs and gutters on there, because the whole neighborhood is a neighborhood without curbs and gutters. And so my only point on that is that you don't have to act on it, but if you could give us guidance, when you vote on this, a follow-up on the first one on B2101 is whether you're comfortable taking these roads as public streets. Assuming that you grant the variance, would you accept the roads as public streets without curb and gutter, or would your preference be, because they didn't put the curbs and gutters in, for them to remain private streets? And the reason I raise that is it makes a big difference on how they set up their final plat with notes and everything like that. So I think that's all I want to say. Mayor, back to you for the opening the public hearing. If you have questions for me, I can answer those now, and you can go ahead and hear from the applicant and the public.
Okay. Any members of the council have a question for Mr. Weiss?
Yes. Question. Mr. Weiss, you were talking about private, private streets, possibly if we approve this with no curb and gutters. What are the pros and cons? I mean, as far as having curb and gutter versus not having curb and gutter. I don't know enough about streets and roads to, to be able to make an informed decision on one way or the other.
To make a long story short, the worst thing about not having curbing is that water gets in the side of the road, and a curb kind of keeps the the water from going into the side, undercutting, like a drainage ditch will undercut the side of the pavement, and it could ultimately, undercut the base and the paving and cause, reason for expensive repairs to the street because a curve, a concrete curve, does, kilos of water away from it. A lot of engineers, I'm not an engineer on hundred, but a lot of folks would say that it's actually good that there's not too much steam in the water with curbs and gutters. This is an advantage of not having the curbs and gutters is that the water infiltrates into the ground rather than running off through a concrete, through concrete curbs and so forth. That increases the velocity of water and it increases the amount of water to the point where it can actually cause flooding and so forth. And infiltration of water into the ground is actually more favorable now than it ever has been. So we kind of changed our mind over 4 years. Does that help you?
It answered my question.
Okay.
Any other council?
So the cost associated with putting in the curbs and gutters, that would be basically would be a large cost. That's why they're asking for the waiver, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not sure why the staff, when they reviewed it back in 2007, in my opinion, without being too harsh about it, should have read the code and required the curb and gutters. It wasn't done. Yes, it's pretty expensive, and you have to. It's not just about putting in curb and gutter, but when you drain the water, you got to figure out where that water's going to go. And right now, what it will all do is, who really knows? I mean, it just sheet flows. There's not really a defined drainage system with ditches out there, and so it's just going to kind of drain. It's going to what we call sheet flow into all different directions.
Would it be wise to consult with an engineer to find out the impact that would have without the curb and gutter? I mean, I'm okay with it, but I don't want to end up coming back and having those costs for the road. You mentioned that water is just seeping under the pavement and asphalt. Is that going to cause more cost for us in the roads, streets and roads department prematurely? That we can avoid by.
Councilmember, you can do that if you like. I would suggest first tonight, file that question with the applicant and have them address what they know about drainage of the issue. It's possible that over time the water will undercut the roads, but that doesn't mean it will happen in this case. I mean, it might be that's a slow process and that's something that we don't necessarily have to worry about. But I would recommend you ask the applicant, Engineer Ali, he's present tonight and can address the overall drainage. If you feel like you need it, you have a city engineer on staff who could, not on staff, a consulting one, who could look into that a little bit more. There might have been, there should have been some sort of hydrology report back in 2007 done, I would think. Again, this year for the project.
Okay. And what about sidewalks? Were they provided in the?
There are no sidewalks out there now. The idea behind the developer was that they're showing sidewalks and golf course paths as required by the conservation subdivisions ordinance. However, what they propose to do is, as each lot is developed, the builder will build those sections. And what I told them I was a little concerned about was, that usually works in a subdivision where things are going to get done. I just have a feeling that this subdivision is not going to move with, all 50 lots being built in a year or two. I think it's going to be shorter and longer, and then, the question becomes, well, do you want to have a situation where you've got pieces of sidewalk, pieces of multi-use trail? And so what we talked about a little bit, I raised that question with the applicant. And basically they said, well, look, you're going to hold on to a bond from us to protect the streets before you accept the streets, and that if we don't have it, you will not give us our bond back if we don't have the sidewalks and the golf cart paths in place at the time. So they believe that's one of the safeguards that we might use to be sure that we get those sidewalks and golf cart paths. And that seems pretty reasonable to me.
So there would be a time limit on that, I'm assuming that's what you're saying.
Yeah, basically in the code, it's a 10-year, it's about a 2-year period that we hold that bond. And then we expect them to be, build out the subdivisions to the tune of about 75% of the lot. You know, say on about 40 lots or so. And then they can come in and ask for the roads to be accepted as public and get their bond back and so forth.
My concern with the sidewalks, and we have a community on the east side of Statham that was built out in around 2000, and all of the homes on both sides of Hammond did not have sidewalks. The ones inside the neighborhood did have sidewalks, but we're stuck, the city's stuck with people walking, you know, basically on the road because there were not any sidewalks put in on the streets facing Hammond when there should have been. And it's really a concern, but this is the way the applicant address.
So we have a council of questions. At this time, I believe we have a representative of the development. If you would state your name and
Service the mayor, my name is Amy, I live in Ghana. You can just call me Amy, sorry, that last name is pretty tough. I'm easier with AD Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the owner, who's here also at the meeting for our beginning. Thank you very much. So, thank you for allowing us to be here this evening. Let me, 1 second. And after you talking about like this. Members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here once again. To give you a little bit of background on this, I know Mr. White has done a great job in giving the background history and the report and talking about how we got to this state. Mr. James bought the property a little over 12 years ago. And it was built, constructed, ready to be final platted. Okay. So, you know, the thing we want to do is just put the pins of the ground from all our quarters, and then allow the final plat and spray it and move on. Since then, of course, the time of hits, things dragged a little bit, came back to submit the final plat. And before that, we have to check the sewer system, storm, and things of that nature, drainage. And we went on, and there's quite a bit of improvements. We have to replace a bit of the sewer. Now, none of that was expected. You know, it was approved, built, inspected, you know, ready to be final plat. So we get it and pull up where at this point, Mr. Jennings is over well over $1 million of this project. You know, this to do that. I know, you know, this is something that the owner has to deal with, but when you don't expect it. So the sewer was supposed to be approved, those construction plans, constructed, inspected, ready to go. The roads were built, so ready to be finalized. Now, the history that goes back to 2007. had the subdivision, as you see it, well approved by the mayor and council at that time. I believe it was Lon Junior. It's a conservation subdivision. So, you know, the region, it was developed with the 33% open space is conservation. That's the intent, you preserve some of that land natural and conservation forever. So we intend to conserve the area outside environmental sensitive areas. And that's what we did. So at that time, it was approved by mayor and council. So that's an action that moves forward. Then move to the staff. So we get construction plans, we get approvals, and then move on to construction. So we approved by our staff in 2007. It was approved by EPD 2007. So it was good, inspected. So we're ready to follow that, and then we have issues with sewer law. We have to get that up. Took a little over 2-3 months to repair. In the process of repairing the sewer, along the roadway, we pulled it up. Yes, it's a sewer up, rebuild it. All that was corrected, and doing family in our hand the whole time, whether we're doing the sewer, roadway, whatever we've done. Those roadways, everything we built in there is the DPD standard, which is what we on a local street. Everything we put 2 courses of asphalt, 8 GAP of gravel, compacted base. Some of them have more than 18 inches of gravel. Because we wanted to do it right. Now, this again, I've known this gentleman for over 20 years. The local builder, very well known, he asked about Athens construction group all over the state, especially in the city. We're going to Athens. So we're trying to build a quality home subdivision here, and then we come and file the final plat, and then we come up with these issues. So let me address some of that. One of the things you have to understand, as an engineer, as a citizen, as a homeowner of this city or anywhere in the county, you have faith in the public permitting process. You go through, you get approvals. When you get approvals, you go build a house or you build a subdivision. So, because that's the approval here. Now, if you take an approval, build a subdivision, and then after we finish, he said, oh, that's what we need to go. But we approved it. Not once, 3 times. We approved this for you. We approved this for you. So I'm going to give you a building permit, give you an example. You'll build a house. And then you come back later. Well, yeah, we gave you a permit. But you got to figure half the house down. Because it's not by the code. How do you do a business like this? Nobody can do business like that. You have to have faith in you, and the community, and the city hall, and the reviewers, and the permit issue. Otherwise, you cannot do that. So, where you could leave the case, tell you that what's approved, or what the city has approved before, is exactly before. I'm not asking for anything. As a matter of fact, what you have here is a better project that you started with and you approved. Now, let me hit something on the roadway in the drainage. First item is related to the curb and gutter. When the subdivision was approved, it did not have curb and gutter. And I refer to the report you have on this water that shows the cross section of the roadway did not have curb and gutter. This line was always all that. 20 foot wide, that's the width of the roadway, but you have all the way around the property from other roads, that's the standard width. So curb and gutter is not easy to add now, because those are built with the construction. You have the curb and gutter, then you pave. You don't pave and add curb and gutter. It just doesn't work that way. I know that you were asking about the impact. If you try to do a conservation subdivision, and you put curb and gutter, you're in fact, hurting the subdivision, hurting the bottom, because you concentrate the flow in the gutter into catch basins and pipes. In effect, you're hurting downstream. You need to be trying to protect this problem. So that's definitely a negative impact. Okay, in terms of worrying about the shoulders, water seeping under the pavement. Look around the country. Look at the VDOT road. Look at the county roads. Do they all have curb and gutter? Do they function? The roadway function if the side slopes are properly drained, graded, grass, stabilized. So if you put the grass higher than the road, you got a problem. You put the shoulder down and you slope it. You don't have an issue. The majority of our roadway system does not have curb and gutter, including this area we're talking about. All the way around it. So if you design the shoulders properly, you slope them properly, and in addition to that, you grass them stabilized, you're going to be fine. But in addition to that, we got sidewalks, we got the cart path going on here. So not just going to be grass or something, the road on you or so. We have a strict 8-foot wide sidewalk. And that's going to very well stabilize the shoulders. So we don't see a need or issue. And to tell you, you don't have a bond for 2 years, but they still performance and mix, Mayor Council. If anything happened to the roadway, the owner will have to repair that before he can accept it. I mean, it's not like something we have to turn around and hand it to you, whether you're stuck with it. We want to have good roadway. We want the homes and the residents that will be living here. If you're comfortable, have really good roadway system. In terms of that, if it was hard, put on the plans, it would be not that hard. I just want to make sure if any question on that problem to the next item. So, on the next item, this is related to the watershed protection zone. I'd like to.
Mayor, I don't want to interrupt, but I do feel it's appropriate to note that under our public hearing procedures, the applicant is allowed 10 minutes of time. You're at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. Just FYI. If we streamline it as a single public hearing, we reduce that to 10 per process. Yeah, go ahead.
So, speaking about the second if we have everything within that one highlighted area cannot be used. In our report, we provided to you that 54% of those lots cannot be used. Unlimited. Everything within that outline, everything in those laws, well, you cannot use. So neither of that was required at that time during the mayor's council approval, nor was it during the staff, nor was it approved or required with the BU. And that's why the subdivision that had not been required, you might not see this part at all. And there's no one that don't make it this much, that would be a land, that's a land like speaking of it. Somebody will have to purchase this land. So I just want to point out to you how impacting, how big of an issue that is. And obviously, that's why the council at that time did not require that to happen. 54% of your lots. Okay. I think the last item, and I'll reserve some time for answering questions. The last item we talked about is very related to 30% green space. That would be typically required in conservation subdivision. If you look in here, you will see also you have that in the packet as well. Everything within this hatched area is open space in addition to the and 33%. We have 33.6%. what we're here about is there was an approval at that stage, nothing's changed. We're actually providing more open space with this plan than it was approved by mayor and council and staff previously. Again, we have a better plan today than was approved. And I think the technicality in the language says detention ponds and access easements do not count. But at that time, they didn't come yet as an count. When that approval was issued, and the mayor and council decided to call it time, this is exactly what you see. They added more open space. These ponds are a combination of normal and non-normal existing ponds that were modified to get here from water. And the reason they did that, because in conservation, you don't want to disturb more, you want to disturb less. To put a pond outside of this area, in the lower areas, you would have to disturb more near those environmental sensitive areas. So once more, that was previously approved, was less than what we provide here at 3.6%. 33.6%. That takes care of that requirement. It doesn't include the pond as it was intended, and as it was approved previously. Mr. Mayor, I'll refer the question to you. I'll let you reserve my comments for the vote on any discussion.
I'm sorry.
For rebuttal.
Okay, so at this time, do we have a representation for, well, first of all, I think they should ask questions.
Yes, at this point, the council asks questions of the applicant.
Do you have questions for? They, I need to use the name. That was for me. So if anyone have questions for him at this point? Okay. Thank you for that presentation. So do we have opponents of this plan that are represented that
Did you
would
wanna
like
speak?
to speak on behalf of the same opinion?
Right here, they didn't say nothing. The deal with the streets that turn to good. There's a lot of things that go on here. I'm sure someone slips on through, and they just do it on. Pavement that's in our. It's pavement that put down, or building. That's it. We have curbs, we have good. And a lot of things. So I'm just saying this. You don't find yourself in the same position. Everybody where I live is in right now. The city will not take it over. They will definitely. The builder will. The builder will. Somebody that is. These people are going to be in the same situation. If you have a lot of smooth talking, pretty maps, go down. The words were consider what you do before it happens.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
My name's Drew Kraus. I live on 472 Whispering Oaks Drive. Okay. I'd like to ask a quick question. On the second variance, which is the one for watershed and that situation. If this variance is not granted, show me what it affects as far as the lots.
It becomes the side that you know,
Okay. So that,
if 54% of our.
Okay. I got a couple things to bring up. Number one is this land, okay, where right here, this is their land. We've been through this. As a matter of fact, you all know there is so much water that comes off of here and from up here where I live, all right, that this pond cannot control the water. The man that built this pond, the city came in, when you're talking about water erosion, at one point, water went over the road, undercut it on this side, and that is a major expense, a huge expense for the city. In the last 3 months, this pond in 3 stages from here down here has filled up 3 times, almost to the point of overflowing on the road. Okay? Part of that is based on the beach dams that are built in that right now. I understand that. This is massively wetland in high areas. All the way up and through here, where this is right here, this is all wet and stays wet. The water comes from over here, comes through here, comes down looking through here, and feeds all the way across here. That's why I'm concerned about this second variance. All right. I own the 4 acres that are right here. Okay. Right here, and I own an acre across the street. I've watched this land for 35 years. These people, whoever are going to have these lots, they're screwed. There's water's going to be a problem, and you can't stop it. I don't have a problem with no gutters. I watched the roads built, and I will commend you. The roads you put in are high quality roads. They will last a long time. The asphalt is thick. The pressure and everything that was done, the roads were built correctly. The repairs on the gutter, on the sewers, absolute. I watched every single bit of that being done. This water is going to be a problem, and you all will end up having to deal with it. Okay, that's why I'm concerned about this variance here. There's, I don't see a problem with modifying some of this. Okay, but there needs to be more looked into as far as where all the water congregates. Okay. Also, there's supposed to be for 50 houses, right? The way it stands. Anybody know how many people live off of Sunset, Whispering Oaks, Lily Lane? Okay. There's over 50 residences there already. That's 100 cars. By the time you put in 50 more homes, that's another 100 cars. There's only one single access, and that's Sunset Drive. Okay? So now you have 200 cars. We're back in the same boat as you were on the 29 highway. In the other situation with 167 homes. Okay? That issue is going to be another problem.
So you're saying there's 8 homes that are affected there by the water flow?
You got these lots right now. For me, I don't see a problem right in here. Okay? I can't speak on this because of the way the land is. I don't know that this really is a problem. Okay? And this watershed doesn't even affect these lots because it's on the other side of the road. This is the road. Oh, everything inside here.
This is,
Okay. This is hard for me to see.
yes, this lot represents the purpose of
I got you.
about watershed, like storms. This would be the line that you can't build in the purpose.
That's correct. That's the problem. So we're not
really deal in terms of stormwater management. So that's what I explained that to me, that this line is represent everything within it. And that's what you won't be able to build on that requirement, which was not really part of it. That's all.
I know that this gentleman thinks that the second one should be approved. I don't. I think it goes against what you all have already represented in other instances as far as what our access to our main thoroughfare is. And I think that should be, that should be part of the consideration as far as that's concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Rudy's right, probably not away. He was right, I want that land is low, it stays wet. And the roads, I've been there about 8 years, and those roads crumble because of erosion. They crumble in big spots. They redone the road, one of the main reasons I know it's because of flooding, but I know those roads were crumbling. They was washing off, your eggs were tearing off. I'm just saying that. Also, I want to ask you a question. What is the average size of these lots? Because we're about at an acre lot. 7,000 square foot. Because the majority of those are an acre, but probably none of less than a half acre. Now we're at what? Less than a quarter acre? That's stacked.
Counselor.
I was simply saying that the lot sizes are not part of the variance application tonight. It's not that's something that would have been considered back in 2007 as part of the rezoning. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's already, unfortunately, that's already been approved. That's been approved before.
We're new, we haven't been here for the first round, but we are on the way. We did have questions about what the subdivision is all about.
And I'm wondering, like I said, it seems to degrade the area when you put homes on a quarter of an acre, right side acre, everybody else got an acre, and then you're flat. I've heard that, I know it's already done, but it is a saturated area, Rudy's right. The erosion has killed the roads over the years that I've been there, and those roads, and it's bad spots. You really need to consider what you're doing with it. It's a bad spot, it's a bad spot.
I have a question in general. So we have a problem with water, standing water, wetlands. What can we do as a city? Jerry, what can we do as a city to help the situation here? I mentioned earlier that we get an engineer to look at it, and I'm not sure, but I have the same concerns as our citizens do about the development. And I'm sure you do too, because you guys want to produce a good product. Nobody wants a wet backyard, so I just have some concerns.
So, the gentleman speaking about the area wet or with the ponds and what, that is true. And that's why it is carved out. What we have the laws is definitely not any flood zone, it's all designated with proper coverage. We're well outside of it. But I am one to agree with you, yes, the majority of the water is going to the low areas. That's natural. That's what's happening now. That's what comes off the high grounds, the low ground. It's natural. The reason you have problems down there at the road, the beaver dams blocked their culverts. They made a bunch of dams out there. As a matter of fact, Mr. Jennings had to send his crews out there to remove soil and clean the house. Even though it wasn't, it was supposed to, culvert out there. We did that. It was holding water. I got a call. We sent the crews out there and removed the dam. This area is wet. It is. It's where the ponds. It's the low area of the land. And that's why it's protected. and well beyond. But every lot in here is well outside any buffer required by state, federal, or local. And Mr. Glasgow will confirm what I know, because we saw the plans that he have presented. And this is no different than what you have approved previously. So there's no lots in here that are within any wetlands or stream buffer or any solid wet areas. But I want to agree with the gentleman, the water goes to the low point. But if you don't have a way for it, you need to be able to move it. It will pond if you block that pipe under the road. It will pond. If you get beaver dams, it will block that and it will stay covered. It happened this last year. We had to go clean several of those, dams, beaver dams, including Colorado. In terms of the pavement, John said it was crumbled. Mr. Jennings did build those roads. It was built in previous construction. So we have tore all that up. We have redone from scratch. I think the gentleman speaks to that fact. I was on site, we were fighting on, every day, including sewage. Mr. Mayor, nothing we have done, we improved by the human nature. What we have. So, but the lots are not here, but the lot sizes, this is a consideration. That's what you do. The lots become smaller, but you save 33%. If that answers the question.
I'd like to just speak to that. My name is Allison Strickland, I'm from Illinois. And as a witness to coming into this property, we bought property here over here in the South Corner in 2011. We have watched a pretty decent road completely disintegrate. All in this area here, there's no way. There's no way. These houses are going to be so solid. This whole area we have seen under torrential. I mean, it looks like you would have thought it was just major flooding coming through under just heavy rains. You go anywhere else in the neighborhood, you're not seeing that rain like that. I've got a video of water rushing down like a torrential river. And when you say this is your buffer and you have enough space here, this, like Rick said, this is far approaching with heavy rains. It just does not seem like there is enough land with this expansion of that water coming up to allow. You can go to this. Let's say that because we spent also a lot of time. You can go here and take several feet steps off of this cul-de-sac off the pavement and be on the DNC block. It's extensively more than what is shown on this map, and I just wanted to, get my feedback.
We're not saying the water moves through.
I live there, and I've been right here. In these lots, or this is not a room back here to have them out of the water, out of the marshiness.
Water is covered. We will have water back.
So let me ask you this, why then does the water run like a river down this road?
One is that run down the low points.
And we've seen rebuilds and rebuilds of, I've seen at least two since we've been there, rebuilds of drainage, and I've seen it destroy bodies of water. It's just, it's coming down. It's all culminating in that area. It's just really marshy.
We talked about another area that they were going to build 6 or 7 houses on. And the engineer came in and said, there's no floodplain here, there's no issue, it's not it's not wetlands, whatever. But you had testimony from the neighbors that lived in that neighborhood that told you that when they went out and when there was a massive rain, that those lots ended up being in standing water. Now, here's my thing. We're back to the same thing. These lots will get sold. And the people that go out to buy it, go out there on a nice sunny August day, okay, when we are in a relatively droughted period. Those lots are going to be dry. They're going to be nice and dry. Okay? But when we have what we've had this time period, okay, we've only really had 1 or 2 what I call massive rains. And those were the opportunities when I came to y'all and let you know if you don't do something about this, and that's when the city came out and cleared the pond, or at least opened the water. And that actually saved the Sunset Drive. But those lots are gonna end up just like those other lots. They're gonna spend 5 months out of the year, nothing but a soggy mess. That's all it is, just a soggy lot. And then those citizens are gonna come to you just like this man did, okay? And let you know that you allowed this to happen, okay? You allowed this to happen, and I bought something that is potentially impaired. That's my biggest concern. I don't own it. I won't own it. I have my land. I'll take care of myself, but I do worry about when the new neighbors come up and say, why didn't you let us know? Why didn't we know?
Billy, I'd like to address, Mr. White's question about, and the whole discussion really is about flooding. And the engineer is correct in the sense that we have no base flood elevation study that says they're in a flood zone. Okay, but that's, all that means is that there is no study. There's lots of places that don't have studies that flood. And we're hearing from the neighbors that say they expect there's a flood, there's a pretty sizable flood zone. Here in July was actually, what can we do? If there were a flood zone, there would be a regulation that required them to elevate the structures above a certain base flood elevation, and we would know what that was through study. Right now, we don't know what that elevation is. Now, I suspect that a good engineer like Dave could probably figure out what that high water mark is out there. And if you wanted to protect the future landowners, even though there is no flood ordinance, as a condition of the variance, number 2, you could require that they elevate the structures a certain foot, at least a foot, I would recommend over 2 or 3 feet above whatever that elevation is, because here's the thing. You know, that's what we think the flood is right now, but it always gets worse everywhere we go. You know, and even the flood maps are underestimates of what happens at the time. So it's always more severe flooding than that. So they're trying to answer your question. Right. And I don't know how we have to actually doing that. That's one more thing that they don't have to do. You know, the study, if that's your concern, and you want to condition the variance on something like that, I believe that you've got to do it.
Let me first let you know that Mr. Jim is not in the building in a stormy way. If it's going to be even monthly, we can elevate the structure, minimum 2-3 feet. You know, none of these lots, again, flood zone FEMA has a map. National flood zone, underneath flood zone. That is for everyone. We have no problem making sure all of those are elevated that are possibly close. There's no flood coming here to establish. We can establish elevation from the on the side, grade. Mr. Jones going to be stuck with these homes with a warranty for 5 years. He's not selling them off. He's building stuff. Everything he develops is this. And he's right here. I'm saying something different. He will tell you otherwise. Again, like I said, I'm working with James, more family very well. So he goes to walking home. He's not going to build a house and sell it to someone, to a family, knowing something is wrong. Because he is on the hook for 5 years with the builder's insurance. So if we need to say those are on the lower side, they would be minimum 2 foot higher than, you know, a flood mark or not, that's fine. We have no problem with that. We're also going to be on the hook for the roads for a minimum 2 years with performance and, you know, maintenance. But the other thing I want to make sure we hear about the sidewalks, you know, if those sidewalks, by the time we have 75% homes built, and not done all the way, we'll build the rest. And anything that does not have a lot on it, we'll build that. There is no problem. We don't, there's nothing we're trying to skip on, but you have more sidewalks and more requirements for, actual occupancy than most of the jurisdictions. So, Mr. Mayor, all these lots, we're not here about discussing lots or not, we're discussing issues related to percent of the open space, but we're not doing something that's gonna be on solid ground. Believe me, today, it's about, I want to protect the foundation, it's soft, this is it. And engineering, while somebody else will just, move on with it, we don't do that. Usually those faulty homes, what they come see any of these subdivisions, lots of marriage, first two farms, county, I just want to assure you that this is not someone that's finding lots of moving on. We got 10 houses ready for the file, we were waiting for the final plat so we can build the house.
All right, thank you. Thank you. I think there's sufficient amount of input on both sides. I thank everyone for their time. I would like a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make that motion.
You second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Unanimous? I believe we have a representative who talked to us on the library here in Statham this evening, and like if you have any handouts or anything that you'd like to provide to the council, you could do so at this time. I would like, if you could, to contain to a 15-minute time frame, and this is Beth McIntyre.
Hi, I'm Beth McIntyre, I'm the director of the Piedmont Regional Library System. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I talk about what we love, our libraries. I would like to start by asking Lori Wolfenheimer, who is our architect, to tell you about some of the things that she's found in the building, and I have visuals for you. The things all around us here tonight. We're working right on the other side of the wall here. I just wanted to share with you some of the insights we've come across since we started the project. When we first began, I'll give you a little status too. The good news is construction is going well. The contractors do a good job. Not all the way, construction is well underway, and we have about a couple months left until substantial completion. Once we started the design, the first thing we did was have our structural engineer do an analysis of the building and report. And what we found, a couple of things we pointed out that we weren't originally aware of, although one you can see from the outside, some of you may have noticed the front wall of the building is pulling away from the side walls. If you look on the inside, the masonry actually isn't too thin, the side walls are engaged in the front wall. So there's nothing really holding it there in place very securely. And our engineer called for steel anchor braces going up inside the bolt corners that we built so that we have that brace feel well and secured. The two main beams that run the length of the building, we added new engineered LVL beams sistered to the historic beams there to help reinforce it too, because they weren't up to code in carrying the roof loads. We also sistered new rafters. A lot of the existing rafters just due to damage to reinforce the roof structure as well. And the anchors always on the firewall where the rafters meet the firewall, and new fencing angles in there to secure it better. So those are a few of the structural issues that the library had initially anticipated, and that it come with the building envelope and not usually a tenant kind of expense, but they definitely were able to do it and make the building better. We also, once we got into demo, this whole firewall up here, it was spurred out on the inside, on the two-story side, so there was stud wall or sheet rock on that side of it. When the contractor demoed it, we found that the whole bottom, I think 24 to 30 inches of that wall on that side of the brick wall was just in horrible condition. We had whole chunks of missing bricks. The mortar was all gone. So obviously there's a chronic roof leak, but it happened probably for years of water settling at the base of that wall. Probably happened right at that carpet intersection. And I don't know that exactly was still there, but I think that's something that so when we took the sheetrock off, we ended up piecing in new brick in those missing racks, repointing the masonry, hardening the masonry. And so we did an extra over $8,000 of repairs to fix and secure that wall on the base of this firewall. And now, unfortunately, we have some roof leaks. So things like one thing after the next, and that's kind of how it is sometimes with these historic buildings. We have the packet that I've passed out shows some of the photos from a couple of occurrences of roof leaks that the contractor has witnessed. The first happened in mid-December, and then again last week. We had heavy ratings, low ratings. And we had multiple roofing contractors up to look at it, try to identify the source of the leaks. No one was willing to just patch it. They wouldn't warranty it. They wouldn't touch the roof up there is so old and there's so many issues that no roofing contractors wanted to touch it without warranty. So that was kind of the situation we found ourselves in. And realized that we were putting in drywall, so if there's ongoing leaks, that was going to be a real issue. It was basically going to stop construction. Luckily, that's been able to secure additional funds from the state to offer to re-roof not just the library, but also over this community center, because both roofs are equally old, and really the firewall, the carpet wall that divides the two roofs, how that roof is engaging that carpet wall is partly what's creating the leaks on both sides. So that's kind of where we are in terms of, I guess, also in your packet, I can direct your attention. The first page in the house really are those roof leaks, some of the photos of that. Images 8 through 16 are images of the top of the library. So you can get an idea of what the condition looks like. And I would probably draw your attention to images 8 and 15 and 16. I think those are good examples of really trying to see the blistering. This is a modified bitumen roof that's on these two buildings. Those generally have a lifespan of about 10 to 15 years. We couldn't find the records of exactly how old this one is, but we suspect it's older than that. And what I'm proposing to re-roof with is a TPO 60 mil membrane cleats on the enclosure cleats up the parapet walls and do all large specifications. And in addition to the roof, I know that Beth wants to talk about the roofing tonight, the funding of the roofing. And just one other thing I wanted to draw the city council's attention to. This is not necessarily directly related to the roofing. We're not asking for any funding for this tonight, but if you look at image 17, just as a preservation architect, this is something I wanted to draw your attention to for this kind of future thought. You can see the parapet wall along the top of that image, and you can see how it's getting built. If you can look at it in the day, you can see the mortar in that upper parapet wall, just wearing away. And the reason why is there's no coping on it. Normally, a historic building might have profiles or something stuck in those walls. Today, we would use aluminum, it's cheaper and it's effective. But there's nothing up there protecting the top of that brick. So the rain is just wearing away and masonry and mortar. And eventually, it's going to be a dangerous situation. You can get these bricks that can fall from there. And I mean, not to mention just it's going to affect that impact if it's not addressed. So this is something to food for thought as an architect. That's unfortunately not very hard state in the project, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention. Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to that.
Thank you, thank you. Are y'all, you're keeping time on, right? Can you give me for 3 minutes?
Of course,
I really appreciate that.
no problem.
I've got all this in writing, so I won't ramble, I'm gonna read it, but it'll be really interesting, okay? When I first got here, summer 2011, former Mayor Earl Bridges at the stadium, came to our piece of land near the elementary school, and he said, that's where we want our library to be. We were wanting to apply to state funding for the library. I explained that the local funding needed to be in place, or at least committed, before we apply. The matter of this table at that time. We began asking to apply in May of 2014 for funding for a new library. I worked out some numbers with the help of Georgia Public Library Service. The minimum square feet for a new building that they will fund is 20,000. The total project cost at that time was estimated at $3.5 million. With 910 funding, the city share would have been $350,000. The matter is tabled. Just to break its calendar right now, for your information, Georgia Public Library Service allocates major repair and renovation, we call it MRR, funds to libraries for needed repairs, such as HVAC replacement, roof replacement, and other building needs. Those funds are allocated at 50-50 ratio. So in order to get, you have to have a 50% raise at the local level before you get the 50% from the state. In the summer of 2017, I learned about a new category of MRR funding called repurposing. This funding was 90-10. 90 from the state, 10 from local. Local governments only needed to commit 10% of the project in order to receive 90% from the state. This was meant to be an incentive for libraries to renovate existing buildings instead of building new ones. And it worked. It worked too well. In December of 2017, I had heard from the state library manager that the city was considering expanding the library into what was then the police department. My understanding at the time was that the police department wanted a bigger space. With this in mind, I approached the mayor, told him about the possibility of 90-10 funding for renovation and expansion of the library. After discussion with him and consulting with the Public Library Service on the funds that would be needed, I requested $350,000 from the state for repurposing. $35,000 was to be funded by the city for a total project cost of $350,000. Since the state funding was not going to be available until July 1, more than 6 months later, the mayor felt sure he could work with the council to fund the local funds in the meantime, which still was 90-10. Stevens project in July 2018, we found out the Stevens project was not funded in FY19 for a variety of reasons. There was no lobbying done at the state level. There were no local funds given. In May of 2019, surprise, I learned that Stevens project was funded with funds available July 1st, 2019. In fact, legislators who normally approve MRR funding as a whole for the state is a $2 million package and not specific libraries have said that MRR funding needs to be allocated to Stevens specifically. I don't know who told them, but that's what I was told. So that was very unusual. However, this is the very, very sad part. A mistake was made. The state allocated $135,000 instead of $315,000. I don't know how it happened, but it got put in the $2 million total for the state and it couldn't be changed. At that point, I went to city council to request the city's local share of $15,000 for a total of $150,000 project. So thank you very much for that. Then in June, the next month, I approached our architect, Joe Smith, with our situation. I knew him from other projects that he loved historic buildings. We considered many possibilities, such as offering the project to college students at UGA or at Georgia Tech in order to avoid paying design fees. Joe offered some of his time pro bono. We discussed how we could phase the project out over several years. We were having a really difficult time figuring out how to undo a $350,000 renovation for $150,000. Thank you. That 19 funding incentive to renovate current buildings had worked too well. FY 20 was the last year that the 19 funding was allocated for the building improvements. Now, from now on, it's 52. In the meantime, I just need to pay some additional money. All right, so there's more text there about the funding. You've got it, you can look at it later. I want to be sure and say that you'll notice that as the state funding increase, I didn't approach city council to request increases in the local funding. I do regret that, and I apologize. I usually work with city managers and mayors, and only their city council when I'm invited to do so. It never occurred to me that since the state was investing 90% of construction funds, the city is failing, that a small percent of local funds would not be allocated. This money has no strings. It's an investment in the city of Salem. A successful public library is at the heart of every successful community. The building is yours, was yours, is yours, will always be yours. I think there's wording somewhere that says you gotta use it as a library for a certain amount of time. I don't think anybody's gonna come after you. We don't have library police. And then if you decide to use the money for other purposes, you can. When I've worked with other cities on 19 funding, they've done whatever they needed to do to allocate 10%. In fact, we come near many projects with the possibility of state funds left over, and local governments have instructed me to find ways to fund that state money, to spend that state money. And then there's some cute little stories there. You can make those cute little stories about how I can spend $1,000 instead of 50 on certain things. So anyway, and then I'll ask him to go. I'll probably don't have time to go over it. I was going to say, I can remind with my notes on it. You probably don't care about it.
Do you want to say another thing too?
Sure.
I guess one thing, we do a lot of massive reuse work, a lot of credit settings in my work. And I will say it's very rare to see this much investment from a tenant in a building show. And what we're able to offer to be able to re-roof this building, I would recommend jumping on it. As building owners, because there really is an investment in the state of agricultural and historical, resources here. So just wanted to put that out.
So you have the bottom line, I'll point out is on the back, it says the water system, the page 2. Bottom line there in the blue, and I did yellow and blue makes green, but to help you kind of block yellow, blue makes green. The yellow is the state, the blue is the local, and green is the total cost. At the very bottom, your level 1 request, we're not requesting anything for this budget year. I want to cover any expenses for the rest of the year and invoice you later after you've had a time to plan and prepare. In level 1, we request $15,100 in FY 22, and for level 2, we request $18,247. The difference in the two levels is if you go with the lower level, that's because I'm making mistakes, and they're all explained there about how $285,000 from the state does not mean $28,500 local. It's not 10% of what the state is allocating. It's supposed to be 10% of the entire cost. $285,000 being 90%, and then your 10% will be different. And it's written on that little sheet. So if you go with the lower level for FY 22, that's because I made mistakes and I'm owning up to them, and we'll deal with it. But if you go with the higher level, then we won't have to give money back to the state. If you go with the lower level, we're going to have to give money back to the state. And that would make sense. So if you go with level 2, we don't have to give money back to the state. I understood you might have some questions about the HVAC. Anybody have questions about replacing the HVAC? Well, if it needs to be replaced, we got money to replace it. And you guys wouldn't have to spend a dime until July 1.
We have not had the opportunity because I figured we needed 3 bids. So I asked Jordan, Public Works Director, to get me 3 bids because the HVAC guy that did come out the other day because of the cold, has made some adjustments, moved this limiter switch that is detecting too much heat. He's moved it so that it should be able to run without overheating and shutting it down when you all move over this. But he indicated that unit's about 22 years old and really needs to be replaced.
You got money now?
So,
Mr. Mayor, would you like our contractors to get price from them example? Subcontractor, there may be some advantages to someone who's already on the.
that would be great because being commercial grade, you know, I can't just go to one of the local AC guys because, you know, you've got to have some kind of crane to get it up there and everything else. So it's a whole different ball game. Like I said, I did give the approved, you know, the directive to get some bids. So, you know, I guess the more the merrier, but it is something that inevitably is going to have to be done, as is the roof. So, all right. Well, thank you both for you have questions. Okay.
So the total amount that you're requesting for the next budget year is $18,247. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that's for the roof? Is that
No,
correct?
it's, if I had more time, I would say it has to do with, our initial, contract cost was $310,000. And now we have had more than $50,000 for change orders because the building is old and it's in disrepair. So our original cost has gone up, so that makes a lot of sense. Really, those are all heavily into the building.
And again, you're the architect, right? Do we expect any more surprises now that we're into it?
We're at the point where we should, one reason why we got a small change order is the sidewalk level out front is a little bit higher than the sidewalk. And I'm gonna deal with that and work out how this transition time, but that's not a small change order. Make that work out.
Because I know we mentioned the roof, but we have another roof that's leaking badly. I mean, when I toured it before I seated up here, we had mop buckets in there collecting water. I don't know how we didn't know that the roof was leaking. I mean, that should have been a surprise, I would think.
I would agree with what you said in the building or, on the construction site until mid-December. That was the first evidence we had. I guess I'm not sure. We got a police department. We're not in the building, it's their design to notice that you can. The water that we did know about was the water that came in, you know, the roof is flat and all of the water on top of this roof goes out to one little strip. And so we know that the bricks are eroding where that water washes down. You can see it. You got water inside the library. And we get water inside the library because it washes down so hard and back up under. So we know that, and we have planned for that, and that was. So as a fit-out project, we have limited funds normally to spend on building exterior. But we did know there's that problem, that's an easy fix. So in the original budget, we haven't got a few big contracts to collect that, and a little on and over the door. Those are pretty low budget things to really prevent that ongoing issue out there. But to re-roof the whole building, I mean, that's really a building owner, kind of issue.
I don't think anybody disagreed that 90-10 is a great deal, but I do have to ask, and maybe I'm misunderstanding. There's a sentence here that says, "It never occurred to me that since the state was investing 90% of construction funds in the city of Stedham, that a small percent of local funds would not be allocated." I believe every time you come before us, we've allocated funds.
Yes, you're right.
So what does that sentence mean?
I'm gonna blame it on COVID also. All of these sectors that you say, I mean, there's 3,000, 1,000, 4,000, 6,000, 3,000, just didn't have time to come to the council every single time. We got it because of Friday. So the more question is, we got to be surprised. But I just.
It reads like we haven't allocated funds when it's been requested, but.
Well, I apologize for that. That certainly was not my intention. Salem has always been very, very supportive. I have heard that there were rumblings for that. So I was concerned, but you've always been very supportive.
That's all
I would just like to say, Beth, that I really, really appreciate all the work that you've done and put in to getting this library, to getting this project funded and getting it where it is, even though it's not completed. It's going to be a tremendous value for our citizens, our youth. It's a wonderful project. We are entering into a budget season here, so we will definitely be talking about funding the library. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. You can tell, from 2011, it's been a real big part of my life.
Oh, yeah.
I love this community.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Before we move on, I have to let everyone know that council members had requests several items be added to the agenda after the initial agenda had already been published to the public and given to the media. Once I was made aware of the late agenda items requested this past Tuesday, February the 2nd, I asked the staff to post the notice to the public for the requested agenda items in the city's website, social media, and posted the notice outside of City Hall on our bulletin board and sent it to the media, all of which was completed by that afternoon on the 2nd. These three items include reducing fines, fees, jail time for minor possession of marijuana, restructuring and realigning the city's assets and real estate to accommodate the building of a new annex for the city on the adjacent property at City Hall, the Public Works Department, and hiring of additional personnel. As of yesterday evening, I had another council member stated they also had items on the agenda or would like items added to the agenda for tonight. And although I felt that it, as well as the previous added agenda items, could have waited until next month, council members do have the right to have an item placed on the previously published agenda, and they have chosen to exercise that right. So the fourth agenda item added to the agenda is restoring a K9 unit to the police department and the purchase of a K9 dog and equipment. So after request of the council members, do I have a motion to amend tonight's agenda by adding all of these items, which will be discussed as items number 6, 7, 8, and 9?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Unanimous? So, will our city clerk please make note to add the reducing fines, jail time of marijuana possession, and the discussion of item 6, which is structuring city assets, 7, Public Works Department. That was 6, restructuring of city assets is 7, Public Works Department, item 8, and restoring K9 unit and as number 9.
Yes, sir, I've got it noted as 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Thank you. So First on the agenda for discussion item is the water and sewer rates. Presently, it has been decided as of March 17, 2015, at a regular meeting to increase the water and sewer rates by 5% annually. It was approved then by the mayor and council to review water and sewer rates from time to time. So this is a discussion. And are there comments by the council?
Mayor, I think personally that increasing water rates every year 5%, personally a little much. Last time I looked, inflation rate was 2.5. It's not to say that we can't increase the water rates as needed when there's a cost increase that's required, but to increase 5% annually with no other reason than just to increase it, I think that's asking a little much of the citizens. It's not to say that the council doesn't have the right or discretion to come in and increase it as needed, but I don't think we as a city should be increasing 5% every year just because we can. Those are my thoughts.
I agree with that, but especially since COVID hit. There's a lot of people out of work and they're barely making it now.
Any other input by council members?
I agree with Gary and Tammy.
All righty. So item number 2 is ethics committee. Our ethics committee, as of December last year, their 2-year term has expired. I believe they were sworn in December. It was approved in September of 2018. So I think some of the council members have ideas, but we are looking for individuals in the city who are willing to step forward and be considered to basically be the check and balance for the city and the city council.
Mayor, as I understand it, the mayor's position picks 1 member, the council picks 1 member, and then those 2 members pick a third. Is that correct?
That is correct. There are 3 positions on this committee for our ordinance, I believe, and that is true. The mayor has a pick and council has a second.
I'd be open for discussion from the council and the mayor on any ideas.
I have an idea. I would like the council to think about bringing Debbie Cross on the ethics committee. She's a pillar of the community. She knows the community and she's very smart. I think she'd be an asset.
Gary, would you consider that? Being on our ethics?
Anyone else would consider that as an option? Yes.
If you guys would consider my impersonating, I've lived in the area for 20 years in business under the savings. I feel pretty good to stay in elementary, Bear Creek Middle School. And I'm very interested in helping the state of the
It's wonderful.
Thank you. Well, it gives us some idea.
Chris, do you live in the city limits of Salem? Okay.
They have to be considered residents under the law. The term resident is they have to physically reside and it be their home. And yeah, all members of the council must be residents of the city. Yeah, of the ethics committee, yes.
It's the same as on the council.
Yes.
Yes. Would she be open to me coming by and talking to her?
Yes.
Who was that again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Joan.
Yes, ma'am.
Moving on to the Tree and Beautification Committee, discussion for new members and make any recommendations for open seats, I should say. That's something that.
Mayor, I was, so everyone knows, I was the chairperson of the Tree and Beautification Committee previously. The members that were sitting at the time, and I and Councilmember McCormick had discussed it, and I had asked to step down as chairperson. And the committee members elected Councilmember McCormick as the current chairperson of the committee. So going forward, I'll let him discuss committee members and any future plans for the committee.
Yes, we have seven members of the committee on the Tree Beautification Committee. The secretary, the vice chair, and I will be able to provide that list to you if you would like it for the records.
Please.
Okay.
As I understand, this will have to be approved by the council on the next council meeting. So we would need, all council members would need a copy of that list. If we would before then. And I believe it's supposed to be 7 members.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 4 is ordinance O-21-01 trees and tree care standard ordinance. As I understand, this will be the first reading to amend the existing tree ordinance to create terms of office for the members of the tree committee to an effective date to correct section number to integrate with the existing code of ordinances and for other purposes.
Mayor, if you'd like, I'm happy to explain the contents of the ordinance.
Please.
Sure. Councilman Venables and I, he reached out to me, and one oversight of the original tree committee ordinance was that the terms of office were in perpetuity. There was no term limits for members on the tree committee. And when I say term limits, I don't mean that they can only serve for so long and then they roll off. People can be reappointed under the revised ordinance, but we're to set in the initial term of 2 years. And if they want to be reappointed and the mayor and the council approve that, it can continue as long as they so desire. The other change is an administrative change. When we adopted the tree ordinance, the sections were not numbered the same way that our code of ordinances is numbered. So we just decided we needed to change it so that it would have section numbers that corresponded with our existing code of ordinances, which is why section 1 of the tree ordinance will become section 22-50 of the code of ordinances for the city of Statham, and so on and so forth. So that's just a typographical change. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about that.
the major change in this, is it reads, except for the director of public works, each individual member of the tree committee shall serve for a term less than 2 years.
That's right. And other than that, all other provisions are the same.
Anyone else on council have a question? Good. All right, moving on to number 5 is crosswalks, sidewalks, and striping, repair, and maintenance. Purpose of this is to discuss formulating a plan for crosswalks and the sidewalks, striping and repair and maintenance, our existing roadways. And for next fiscal year, and the budget in fiscal 21 has already been approved and adopted. So we do have funds available. I included for everyone on the council some examples of areas that were necessary for road improvements, some striping, some estimates. Some of this information goes back to 2016, prior to this council, and some of it was approximately 12 months ago. But it is, I think, the council an idea of what kind of monies would be needed. Also provided some flashing signage and some prices of things that I had investigated early on my tenure last year. So anyone have any questions on the council of that?
Yeah, I have a couple comments.
Yes.
I was looking at the old quotes that was provided this afternoon for restriping, and the police department had given us some suggestions of what needs to be restriped or some lighting areas. And so I spoke with Jordan in our public works department concerning, basically asking for his input as well. There's a couple of streets that the police department have recommended that needs restriping, and I definitely agree with those. But those roads also need repaving. So perhaps we should deal with the striping at the time that we can repave. I don't know that the funds will be there for repaving next year. We don't know that at this point in time until we get in the budget hearings. But I would need to take the $45,000 approximately that we have currently and put into striping of some of these roads, whenever we may be able to repave them and get them restriped very soon. So looking over the recommendations from the police department and speaking with Jordan, there's quite a few roads. I rode them this past week. I went and rode them this afternoon, and there's quite a few roads that do need restriping, and the crosswalks need to be repainted. The stop bars and the stop signs need to be repainted. And some of the worst offenders, in my opinion, are information here. Definitely Broad Street for one. The lines there, without a doubt, have worn. And in many cases, you can't even see the yellow line there. Thankfully, it's a wide road, but the bike lanes need to be restriped. The crosswalks need to be restriped, repainted. A couple of other roads that were mentioned by the police department, and I personally agree with, Price Street, Railroad Street, Ventura Street, the stop bars and the crosswalks on Atlanta Highway. I think we should strongly consider all of these streets and the crosswalks and stop bars on all of them as well. I personally would like to see us put crosswalks, lighted crosswalk signs. You can get those that are solar powered. I'd like to see them up here at crossway of Broad and Jefferson where it's heavily trafficked and people walk every day. See them walking there, walking their dogs, they walk at night. I personally like to see some lighting signs there. Providence Road, the stop sign there. I think it would be a good idea to have LEDs on that stop sign. I see people run it all the time. I don't know if it's on purpose or if they just don't know it's there. But I see them running it all the time. It's close to the school zone. Subway. What I call the subway crosswalk. I would prefer to see crosswalks, lighted crosswalk signs there. You know, it's a high traffic area as well. A lot of people coming in here, businesses, a lot of people crossing streets throughout the day. A lot of business owners walk through there every day. I think we can afford all of that, given the rough estimates that I've seen. I think we can afford all of that and probably still have some money left over. The last thing I'd like to touch on is that 2nd Street in Broad is very, very dark at night. There's no light there. You know, and this was kind of personal to me because I was walking one night with my wife and I had to stop her because the car was coming. I said, they don't see you. So I pulled her back. After we saw that they were going to actually stop and not hit us, we crossed. Well, it turned out to be a friend of ours. We hadn't seen in a while. They blew the horn and said, it's a good thing you stopped because we didn't see you. Extremely dark there. So that's another thing I'd like for us to look into as a city is finding these areas that are really dark where people are known to walk even at night and see if we can't get those lit up. I know we've had accidents in the past, especially with people in these crosswalks. You know, none of us want to see that happening again. It's a minor amount of money when you're talking about people walking and certainly taking the chance of getting hit. So I would like the council to consider some of these areas, if not all of them.
Well, with these bids, Gary, with these bids that we have, is that going to give us an idea? I mean, these are 2016 bids.
We would, to follow our policy, we'd have to go out and get more bids. We're supposed to be 3 bids, 3 quotes. But again, we got a rough estimate of what those cost. The lighted signs, we have those in front of us. The lighted stop sign, just looking on the internet, a lighted stop sign is $1,455 for 38 solar powered sign. Again, just looking on the internet, a lighted rectangular rapid flash beacon single sided 30-inch pedestrian crossing sign that's again solar powered. $1,911. I think we can get all of this and we probably still have money left over, to be quite honest, just for doing the rough math.
Well, I believe for all of those items, it's roughly 30,000. We do have SPLOST money that is there for that part of that purpose. A couple of those items that you mentioned, I will reach out to Georgia Power and see what it can take. I believe we talked about 2nd and Broad. There is one Broad and 8th. However, it sits back more on the railroad side, and right now it illuminates. But once that tree is in full foliage, pretty much that intersection is going to be blackened out. So I thought if I could get Georgia Power to consider putting one on the embankment across the street, that it would illuminate that whole thing. That may be something that then I believe the city pays the electric.
Yeah.
So if I can get Georgia Power involved with that, and hopefully we'll have an answer by the council meeting in 12 days. As far as these crosswalks, we may, because this is state through 211, I may be able to get GDOT to get involved and possibly do those or if nothing else, split the cost with the city. You know, a little bit is better than nothing, so I will, make that a priority, and again, hopefully have an answer by 12 days.
Mayor, yeah, just like I said, this is definitely on a comprehensive list. To be honest with you, I'm more familiar with the Broad Street areas because I walk them. I'd encourage, if there's any other areas that anyone knows of, let's try to get them fixed, please.
Reach out to City Hall by all means. And we'll, do a work order and try to incorporate it if possible. No other questions on that? We move on to item number 6, possession of marijuana charges. Reducing fines, fees, jail time, minor possession. I believe that is your baby.
It is, and, Mayor and Council, I thought it was time that we start discussing what it would look like as a city to at least reduce the fines and fees and possibility of completely eliminating jail time for minor possession of marijuana. And, you know, there's, I don't want this issue to become a tinderbox of a heated debate in our city. I don't want to divide us. My intent is not to attempt to legalize marijuana, which we can't do. I don't even want to decriminalize it. The only thing I'm looking to do is reduce the fines and eliminate jail time altogether. And what that would look like for the police department, and what is that going to look like for the city, and what would that do for us is the question. And, you know, I think what it would do for us, one of the positive things from a public safety standpoint, and the chief is here, would be to allow the police department and our public safety officers to focus on other things, on more heinous crimes, on more, on more important issues. As we grow as a city, I'm looking toward the future, and you can't help but notice, or you can't help but acknowledge the medical benefits of marijuana. It's medically legal in Georgia. It's already been approved. It's legal in 11 states now. There's a green wave moving across the United States of America about marijuana. And I just think it's time that we as a city look at it. Just take a look at it. We're not going to take any action tonight. I'm just opening the discussion as a city to take a look at it. But I want everyone to remember that this is from the National Institute of Health website, our government's website, that acknowledges that cannabis and cannabinoids, marijuana, help reduce pain, anxiety, epilepsy, glaucoma, AIDS, inflammatory bowel disease, Tourette's syndrome, multiple sclerosis, nausea, related to cancer chemotherapy, PTSD, sleep problems. This is just the ones that the National Institute of Health are acknowledging. The other benefits are, I have a friend who had seizures, and there's babies who have had seizures. That there's no doubt that medical marijuana was the only thing that helped. And I just think it's time. As a city we open the discussion, open our minds. The federal government may just go ahead and legalize it on a national level within a year. That's been discussed. So I want to find a way to craft this and to do this where it doesn't hurt our public safety. where we've had discussion with the chief, and we talked with him about what that would look like from the police standpoint. We also talked about, I'm going to kind of segue into issue number 9, which we can talk about later, but we can help the chief, we can get the chief a canine dog, a non-aggressive canine dog that specializes in the apprehension of harder drugs. And it would allow our police department to focus on harder drugs. So, Chief, do you have any input for us tonight? I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but we did have a discussion, and I did want to discuss it and get your thoughts on where we're headed as a country, as a city, and a state. And you know, it's the green wave is coming, and I would like your input.
My input is, I don't think we need to see it, to be honest with you. I think it opened the doors, the gateway to so many. I think it opened the gateways to so many other things as well as marijuana. Starts out with marijuana. Okay, that's okay. But see, what we're missing here, guys, simple things like marijuana now, it's not just marijuana anymore. It's lace, fentanyl, PCP, methamphetamines, crack, cocaine. Okay, my thing is, if we have people that have medical issues that need this, get medical treatment, get a medical card and have it shipped to your house. Right now, we're making these type of drug arrests, marijuana drug arrests, starts out with basic parasites. A little dime bag that you find in the car leads into 3-4 ounces of meth, cocaine, or whatever it is. The ratio right now, 3 out of 5 cars per stop, we're getting this in farms out there. And it all started from the basic marijuana. I am against it. I'm not going to support it, but I know it is coming. It is changing. I have to say, and I definitely believe that in this area what we're living in right now, just 3.2 miles, we have a big drug problem here already. And with the power, the manpower we have, we're going to open doors for more to come in. Right now, I will give you a great show you some stuff that's going on in this area. Salem is a simple location for pickups and drop-off points. Little Salem. We get on 12 Savannah coming through here, making big deliveries. And that is with the few guys I have. We're not beginning to tap the resources. Where we live, where we're sitting right now, just in this area alone, is still a residence that we are trying to work on and trying to get outside resources to come in and help. That suspicious activities are going on as far as cars being stopped when they leave the area that we're finding in our power. I just think that right now is the wrong time to look at it. I think we're going to continue to more issues that we have, and you know, I just think right now we just need to sit back and really look at it before we decide to agree on it.
I have a quick question.
Yes,
Are we currently sending people to jail for possession of minor amounts?
No, sir.
Okay, so that's my point. That's my exact point right there. Is that we're not even wind testing it?
Well, my
Put it
question
out on the ground.
would be to you then. Okay, we're not taking the jail on it. The only reason why we're not. Because if I found a dime bag from marijuana, then as we search in the car, and I get a half an ounce of methamphetamine, felony versus misdemeanor. We call them a break on that, but we're gonna charge you for that, for the felony.
Well, I was gonna work with our counselor to make sure that we crafted the ordinance where it protected the casual user of marijuana. I'm not talking about protecting the meth dealer. I'm talking about.
It's all the same.
Well, no, I disagree that it's not all the same because you've got casual users of marijuana, and that is who I'm looking at. But I'm looking after the person that, you know.
But let me say this much.
Yes, ma'am.
A lot of the reason why marijuana is laced with something else is to get people hooked on a harder drug. That is the key. They want you to get hooked on a harder drug. So if you're just gonna bring it in, does everybody want? Just, I'm like this, if the federal government's gonna, legalize it, let them do it.
I guess on this, we passed this right. And this particular car only have just marijuana cigarette in it. But that's what it appears to be. I mean, that's what it looks like. But since we have passed it, be less than an ounce, that's a cigarette that we're looking at. It's possible. It could be laced.
Oh, I've seen somebody smoke.
It could be laced.
I mean, it was crazy.
I mean, that's the only thing I'm saying. I want forward mobility here instead of much than. I don't want to introduce something that's going to really tear. We have issues now. We open up the doors to that. Within my 12 months of being here, I can tell you, this is the town has a lot of problems.
Well, I don't think we need to undermine the police department.
You're gonna use marijuana or medicine, they should carry a card from
Right.
that doctor. We do, that makes it legal for them. But you're concerned about the ones that don't carry a card, is not sick, let's call it joy.
Yes, ma'am.
Or kink, or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned about it too. If they don't have a card, medically, then okay, right.
Yes.
We're gonna let y'all speak.
Later, well.
I promise.
Right, I don't want to argue merits of recreational use of marijuana. It's really not what I'm talking about here. But my thoughts are this. I read just this week an article where the Senate was looking at pushing this, legalizing marijuana. Now, I didn't read the actual legislation, so I don't know what's in it. But I think as a city, we probably should follow the laws of the federal government and the state government first and foremost. And to me, there's a difference in decriminalizing something and legalizing something. If something is legalized, there's usually safeguards in place to regulate it. And by that, what I mean is, if you go to a beer store or a liquor store, you can purchase that liquor or beer, and you can bring it to your house and you can drink it. If you purchase that liquor or that beer and you open it in your vehicle, you now have open container violation, which then could lead the police to possibly stop you for a DUI. Because at that point, they have cause to think that you're drinking and driving. Now, it's a touchy subject by all means. But my concern is if we decriminalize it now and state them, we might be sending the message that we don't want to send. And I do understand what, in some ways, what Councilmember McCormick is saying. But at the same time, I'm fearful that we're going to send the opposite message of what he's talking about. And I think that we would be better suited as a city personally, regardless of what we think about legalizing or not. I think we'd be better suited as a city and as a council to let the feds handle it and let the states handle it and deal with it from there. I just think that there will be guidelines and regulations in place to where there's no confusion from our police department. Much like us, our police have to take an oath to uphold the laws as the state provides, the feds and the state. I don't feel like that we should ask them to do otherwise. That's my opinion.
And I think we should let Chief handle it, let the police department do their job. We're in better shape than we have been in many, many years. They're all doing a great job. And I don't see where we are trained to deal with something like marijuana and say, you can smoke it, but you can't. They know when they make that stop, they know what they find, they know how to deal with it. We don't. So my opinion is for us to leave it alone and let the people just train them, deal with it, do the job.
Well, my point in bringing this up was to have a discussion. Because as a city, you know, I think it's good for us to look at what's coming in the future. I think it's healthy to have these discussions. I didn't, you know, it's not like we're going to vote on it tonight. I just wanted to have a discussion and use this discussion as a barometer or a thermometer of how that look for the city. I honestly think we're going to be looking at it sooner than later. And that being said, we're going to be dealing with it, whether we like it or not. And you know, I have a lot of friends who use marijuana. They're very, very responsible citizens. You may not ever guess that they use marijuana, but for them to be, I was just kind of trying to look out and look for the future and see how that would look for us as a city. So, you know, it's not like we can pass it. It's not like we can decriminalize it. I was just getting an idea of what that would look like for us as a city. I guarantee you, people are smoking right now.
Well, what they do it on home. They do it on home, but if they're out in forest, driving,
Right?
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Well, I'd say moving on, number 7 is under the heading of city annex for restructuring, realigning city assets, and real estate to accommodate the building of a new annex for the city on the adjacent property of City Hall. I believe that is also something you wanted to bring up, and I provided something that was done 2 years ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Estimated cost of $400,000.
Okay.
So you got it from there.
I just want to take a look and take the opportunity to look at what it would look like to start considering building an annex across on the property that we acquired at 1921 Broad Street. What kind of kicked this whole restructuring idea off was the library went and got a grant, kicked the police department out. Now we've got the police department displaced into you know, a very nice facility, but it's costing the city about, you know, $1,800 to $2,000+ a month. And it's really, to me, it's really brought to light that the need for a municipal complex or more offices or a police department. You know, there's lots of ways that we can restructure City Hall and the land that we have. We have a building, we have the Public Works building that we need to deal with in some kind of way. And I think if we look at the sale of the house at 1921 Broad Street and possibly considering the sale of the Public Works building and using those funds to meet the needs of the city and our police department, and just get everything kind of sort of under one roof. We do have a preliminary drawing here of what that would look like. This was done by another council member a little bit ago. And I think it's time that we look at where our resources are going. This would have us one water bill, one electric bill. This would have us operating, although the building would be separate from City Hall, we would still be in one area. And,
I asked about that same question, and there was a concern that had for parking. We're gonna have, I don't know how many police cars. Is there enough parking for City Hall? No, there's enough for that and the homeowner.
we got the property behind, we got a little piece of land behind City Hall. We got the, no?
Our land ends at the back of that building.
It does?
Yes, it
Okay,
does.
well, we might consider acquiring some land behind City Hall for parking. I know there's a nice little house back there, about 300 square feet. You know, that, I don't know what kind of shape it's in, but, no. Anyway, I think it's time that we start looking at what building an annex would look like. The idea is that everybody gets, you know, we get to have a say in what goes where and how it's going to look. We can hire an architect. We can get different drawings, different plans. We can get, we can have presentations. We can say, this is configuration A, this is configuration B, this is police department, where City Hall is now. You know, we can have lots of different ideas, but I think building a new annex right next to City Hall. I mean, we acquired 60 feet by 120 feet of land there for this purpose. So we have enough land to do it. I think it's time that we consider moving forward with that, because we definitely, with the police department where they are now, we definitely have the need for something new right there.
Well, I think in general, we have to plan for quite a few things. We got quite a few projects coming up, big projects, that need to be dealt with. One of the things that I think we do need to deal with in the very near future is looking for a more permanent home for our police department. By saying that, I'm not sure what the plan would be. We do need to start preparing for it and start talking about it. We have property I've talked about since I've taken office that is falling into myself, that if we're not going to repair it or use it, we need to get rid of it, in my opinion, rather than let it sit there and rot, fall in. Once there's property, in my opinion, is the old public works building that's right here beside us. I think if we're not going to repair it and utilize it, let's get rid of it. That money can go towards, you know, possibly building something for the police department or new City Hall. The city owns some other property that's not being used. I'm not sure if we'll ever use it. I don't know. It's vacant. Not sure what the plans are for that. Things like that are things that I think we need to discuss and figure out what we're going to do with it. Why do we have it? Where are we going with it? If we're not going to use it, what are we going to do with it? Why do we have it? Those sort of things. So absolutely, I believe we need to start looking towards the future and consider these things. I know months and months ago, we were talking about getting a request for information for, you know, some of these properties to see what it would take to renovate them, see if it was worth renovating. And, you know, we're not there yet. But in my opinion, if we're not going to use these properties that we have no future plan for them, we're not going to renovate them, let's don't let them fall apart. Let's don't let them become useless where nobody wants them. You're not going to fix it, get rid of them, take that money and put it back into the city some way, somehow. That's all I know.
Like to be in the house.
Next up for discussion is Public Works Department, additional personnel. I believe that is something that you wanted to speak about.
Yes, I'll try to be very quick. As plenty of citizens has brought to our attention, the trash around town, the weeds and flower beds and grass getting high, not maintaining what our town needs to look like. Now, in the budget, we put in the budget for 2 workers in our public works department. And I don't believe we have either, do we?
We had hired one and had to let it go.
Or have we been running at the paper anymore?
No, because with the COVID and knowing that revenues were down, I didn't think it was,
Well, there's people obviously going to be at work right now.
what happens if our revenues go down even more and we got to lay them off in July?
Well, that's what we have to do. I mean, we budgeted for 2 more workers. And as Mr. Bomeyer brought to our attention, that the town just looks terrible.
Can we get a telephone people, can we get at least one guy to replace the one we had?
For community service.
We lost, the thing was, we lost our prison help.
I'm sorry.
We lost our prisoners' help, and that was $50,000 a year. You know, that's been, that's had an impact on how our town's looking. Believe it or not. I need to have a look at that. And what it looks like, we hire somebody to replace it. The guy that we hired, Don.
I just think it would take a lot of pressure off of you, Mayor, a lot of pressure off our public work guys. If, you know, have them cleaned up. That's all I have.
Next up for discussion is restoring the state and police department K-9 unit. That is you, Mr. Bennett.
Yes, sir. Mayor, this came out of the discussion of decriminalizing marijuana. And I feel that soon enough that marijuana is going to be legal. I may be wrong about that. So, you know, I got a discussion with the chief about possibly bringing a K-9 unit back into the city. You know, without getting into a whole lot of details here, I personally believe that Statham has a drug problem for a town this size. There's some numbers that the chief has presented that are, in my opinion, quite alarming, especially for, again, a town this size. I feel that a K-9 unit will be more than a return. And I'm not talking about money. I don't believe in policing for money. I'm talking about getting stuff off our streets. And I feel that when you have hard drugs that are floating around in the city, that leads to other crimes. I personally think that it leads to theft, it leads to domestic violence. And then if you want to talk about money, the property values go in the toilet. No one wants to live in a city that's overrun with people that are you know, robbing and potentially having domestic violence all times of the day. So that led me to the conversation with the chief. Would it be prudent to get a K-9 unit? Well, we discussed it at length, and one of our concerns was we don't want to give the city the wrong idea. You know, we don't want an aggressive dog And I found out that there are no bite dogs that you can buy. And they're trained not to bite. They're trained not to be aggressive, but yet they can still sniff out the drugs that you're wanting to target. And targeting these drugs to me is very important, as I think, you know, given the size of our city, as small as it is, you can't throw a football without either hitting a middle school or an elementary school. We're really close on top of each other with our neighbors, which is not a bad thing, as long as everybody's playing by the same rules and are behaving. And typically people behave until they enter, in my opinion, they're well behaved typically, unless they are in an altered state. So to get to the point, I asked the chief to look at the cost of a no bite dog and what it would take to get that back in the city. What I found out was it would cost us approximately $12,000 for the dog. And then I started inquiring, do we have someone with the right certifications to handle this dog? Someone with experience to handle this dog? And someone with the correct temperament to handle this dog? And the answer to that was yes, we have a truck with a cage. We've got an officer that's already hired for the city that is certified and has experience, and in my opinion has the right temperament to handle the dog, so it doesn't get out of control. So given all that together, I would like for the council to consider at the next meeting purchasing this dog and the equipment to go with it. I asked, do we have the money to do that? And we do. We have $28,000 as a fund balance. Our accountant said that we could easily move that money and purchase this dog along with the equipment that's needed for it. I talked with the chief about the officer that would handle this dog, which would be Officer Russo. He agreed that he would handle this dog. I talked with the city attorney very recently what it would take to make sure that everything is paid correctly under the federal guidelines. So we're going to work that out. We're working on a policy for the dog and to handle the dog. All of that can be done I think in my opinion, very quickly, and funds are available. So if the mayor approves, I've asked the chief and Officer Russo to speak on this tonight to give us more information.
Yeah. Yeah, we're going to jump front.
I want to say, I love being here a year. I never even heard of staying a year ago. It's been a blessing to be here. I'm from a small town in South Florida, and this reminds me of my home. I look at the community and the citizens, and family, and it's been a year, it's been a wonderful year. I was with the state for 15 years. 3 of those years, I was a canine handler for the state. I handled a narcotic dog and I handled a tracking dog. Also, with asking about getting a dog, it wouldn't just be for narcotics, it would also be for tracking. And one of the biggest benefits that you guys, if you approve it, will bring is, besides the Department of Corrections, state will have the only non-bite tracking dog around, which is huge because of missing kids and missing elderly with dementia. There's so many times that I'm at work and I'll hear dispatch call, or we have a missing kid, we need a canine officer for the non-bite dog. You gotta call the Department of Corrections. The closest one is at Alton. That's an hour and a half drive, I believe, maybe an hour drive. It turns into an hour and a half. I was canine with the Department of Corrections. By the time I get to a call for a track, the track is usually 2 hours old. And that 2 hours, a missing kid, most of the time missing kids are kids with autism. I don't know if anybody knows this, but if you find a missing kid, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna find a kid with autism by a body of water. And in that 2 hours, that's too long that the kid could drown. I don't know what it is about autism, I didn't study that, but for some reason, it's proven that a missing child with autism or some other sort of symptom like that, they gravitate towards water. I guess it's Sparkles. Yeah, I have no clue. But we'll be the only one around, we'll have a non-white dog, which is great for finding a kid. It's great for finding an elderly person with dementia who's gone missing.
Also, we look at schools. We have 2 schools in this area. Like, when we go through schools, kids, non-white dog, they have lockers there. We do locker check. Believe it or not, drugs is going through our specialty nurses. And you got this tool right here.
One of the biggest things the kids are doing, you talked about marijuana, simple marijuana. Well, we're all adults here. When we think of marijuana, we think about some grass. These kids are not smoking grass marijuana. They're smoking THC vape, which is a high concentrate of THC, which is a felony. Any of your kids get caught with a vape, or any of y'all get caught with a vape, that's a felony in the state of Georgia. And all these people that are pulling over these teenagers, they have no clue. These kids are dumb. They just think it's marijuana, THC, they're just smoking to get high. They don't understand it has such a high level. And in the state of Georgia, it's a felony. Just for one vape, you can have one vape, and then you can have 27 grams of marijuana, 27 grams of pot as a diagnosed misdemeanor. This right here would get you a year at least. But you were talking about also the narcotic aspect of it. On the 20th, I made what I consider a good bust. I got an ounce of meth that was bought here in Salem. The guy drove all the way from Augusta to buy it. Yeah, he snitched on everybody, and we're working on that. But I was very excited about that. I was very excited about the ounce of meth. That's a good bit of meth. I don't know if anyone's seen. I know an ounce doesn't seem like a lot, but when you see it in crystal meth form, it's outrageous because a user uses maybe a half a gram of it. An ounce is a lot of meth. I was excited about that.
What's physically, just for layman like myself, what is an ounce? If I laid an ounce
To be honest with you,
in front of me, are we talking a dinner plate,
like
saucer?
a full ziploc bag, like a sandwich bag. Full, and it's big crystals because it's coming straight from the guy that's making it. And I was excited about that. That excitement lasted 12 hours. One county opened from us.
By the
It only lasted 12 hours. Around the same time the next day. For a guy speeding through town. The guy gives all we call it criminal behavior. We use it as indicators. It's how someone acts. It could be something as simple as them not having a driver's license. They're going to act nervous, not just because they ran a stop sign nervous, but there's just something that you learn about the human body when you're a police officer on reactions from the eyes to the shape. There's so many indicators. This guy was giving all the indicators. The officer said, hey, look, you're giving me these indicators. I think you have something legal in your vehicle. Can I search your vehicle? They said no. You're allowed to under the Fourth Amendment right. You're allowed to deny a search if we don't have PC to search your vehicle. We could say all day long you're giving me the
PC probable cause.
probable cause. I could say all day long you're giving me the indicators. So they called out a canine. Canines did a free air sniff around the vehicle. One county over January 21st pulled out 28 pounds of meth out of that.
Good gracious.
28 pounds of meth out of that car.
And this is the same time when you make the arrest right here. So.
And that's, you can look at all.
You would have been excited about that.
Yeah, like I said, my high did not last long.
Would you explain to?
A free air sniff is something that in the law allows. A free air sniff means a vehicle is stopped there. You can run a dog on the outside of that vehicle. Just like at the airport. When I worked for Department of Corrections, I worked with FBI and we did airport searches on luggage that come in straight off the plane. I could run my dog around any luggage at the airplane, at the airport, And that's when you find 20, 30 pounds of meth, 20, 30 pounds of marijuana getting flown in from California. So for instance, if you run the dog around outside the vehicle, and if the dog alerts or gives any indications, whatever, the dog can sit, the dog can bark, whatever that dog is known to do about narcotics, that gives you probable cause to search the vehicle. Are we doing this because we want to find marijuana? User amount of marijuana? Not at all. We're doing this because we want to find, we got a bunch of heroin we've been finding lately. We're getting a bunch of meth that we're finding lately. Ecstasy.
Illegal weapons.
Illegal weapons. And the two big drug busts I had last month, both of them had firearms. Two of them were stolen firearms. One of the firearms was stolen from the ATF. How that happens, I have no idea. And then when Mr. Venable rode with me, I only did 2 traffic stops when he was with me. The second traffic stop, we found felony amount of dope, a wanted person, and 2 firearms by a convicted felon.
That's a 1 for 2.
1 for 2.
How high is that?
50% of the vehicle.
That one was pretty good. He said, oh, yeah. Yeah, he's not allowed to ride. Unfortunately, dealing with him, I had to deal with the sovereign citizen. I don't know if y'all know much about sovereign citizens. They're not the best citizens to deal with on the truck. He mentioned it. He said, "That's how it doesn't mean nothing." 45 minutes later, he meant something.
So when my ride one comes out, I'm going to hear.
No. But I think that it's all the benefit of the city tremendously. I understand that, unfortunately, in the past administration, there's been some distrust in law enforcement. With the chief right there and the officers he's hired, I think we're regaining that trust, and not slowly like you would think a city would regain it. I think we're getting that trust at a high rate, and there's a lot of citizens who agree that there's a meth problem. I did a traffic stop not the last Sunday I worked at the Dollar General. I got 8 grams of meth out of the car. I guess when we were there, we scared somebody because we got called to the Dollar General twice within 4 hours because the workers found meth and the heroin hidden in boxes. Boxes that a kid could have picked up. And the only thing I could think of is we were out in that parking lot searching, so somebody got scared and dumped whatever they had. And we got caught out there twice. The last Sunday that I worked.
A lot of times, though, that I work over there too, they will leave something there, someone will pay them for it, and then they know where to go pick it up at.
Well, what was found, I think a woman and her child was a meth pipe, a bag of marijuana, and then later on, within an hour or so later, one of the Dollar General workers found a bag of heroin.
I'm surprised.
And that was, and the only thing I can think of is I was out there with 2 Bear County deputies. And because of all the police traffic, someone got scared and was like, oh, I'll just pick this up later. They hit it. And well, fortunately, the workers found it and they called us. We was able to take it. But it would benefit the city greatly, especially the tracking dog, because we would be the only one around with a non-bite dog that can not only track a suspect. I had a non-bite dog with the Department of Corrections, and I used him to track the escaped inmates. I used him to track the murderers. But you don't need a bite dog to track somebody, no matter how they use them. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Rizzo.
Thank you.
I agree with the dog. I have to say that it should be an asset.
Yeah. Like to request to put us on the business meeting for vote on purchasing non-binding dog along with the proper materials for handling.
The February 16, I believe, is our council meeting.
I'd also like to make a request to possibly looking at hiring an architect to, or giving the companies that do this drawing to look at several configurations for the city, how our city annex would
This was Gordian. Gordian is the state recognized company that basically gives us the same benefit as getting 3 bids. Because they go out and they do the whole bidding process and they have to follow the state regulated prices.
You do?
I'd like to share
You have what?
experience with Gordian.
Oh, you do?
Okay. Well, you can always reach out to me if you would, but I put it down to do.
Reach out to
RFP.
Okay.
The only time a vote would be required is if we have to approve a purchase or authorize an expenditure under the finance policy. So if you look at each individual line item, if it doesn't cross the threshold, then no vote's required.
We don't even know that Gregory was calling.
But I guess a better question is, do we need to put on the agenda vote to go out for bids or striking?
Again, it all depends upon how you look at it. If you want to try to bid this out as a package, meaning multiple parts, multiple projects, and if that project, the total package is going to exceed the thresholds and you need to get a certain number of bids and then vote to approve it, yes. If you're going to do it piecemeal, individually, and it falls below the threshold, you don't.
What's the threshold? 20,000?
Well, I think it's lower than that. Give me a few minutes, I'll give you the answer to that question.
Because they
I recommend we move on to the next agenda item and then
That's what I'm trying to get. What we get next.
Okay, so, do we have, people
Yes,
that have signed up to talk?
yes, Ms. Piper?
I believe the police chief said a lot of my speaking points tonight, but I just wanted to add some more information so that you have it. My background in psychology is something you may not know. I have a master's degree in therapy for many years when I was working. And part of my thing is research, and so I did some internet research because I had not heard of this decriminalization of marijuana. And that's what it's, what's the term, this is decriminalization. All the states around Georgia do not have any cities that have decriminalized it. Only Georgia has it. So I double checked to see what cities they were. And those cities are the small suburbs around Atlanta. Macon, Savannah, and then I think it's Kingsland, which is down near the Florida border, which I figure is because of college students in spring break. I spent a lot of time before we moved to Georgia permanently in southern Atlanta. Trust me, I went to sleep listening to gunshots, watching drug deals on the streets in front of the apartment building where my daughter resided, parking lots of the stores that we would have to shop at. Those are the decriminalized areas. And I did some more research, and the states that have been doing it are states like California, Colorado, Washington State, Arizona, New York, Maine, Vermont, some of those areas, but our general area does not have that. They did some casework, which is my interest because I like to read case studies and things like that. In California, they did a case study from like 2016 to 2018. And it showed that when they decriminalized marijuana, the graph showed that the people going to jail for marijuana went down. What went up was arrests for the hard drugs, the more felon drugs, house invasions, murders, robberies, prostitution. That all went way up off the scale. That's what happens when you start decriminalizing it. So my point was to be to the council members is that let's just take a step back because there's a big lobby group in Georgia trying to push this through. The wave is around Atlanta, and I understand their purpose for that probably from what I'm gathering from all my reading and research is the fact that it was bogging down the legal system. They did not have room in the court cases, they didn't have room in their jails. That's why they did that, to kind of eliminate that. It sounds like from what the chief has said, they're doing that anyway. So I just wanted you to think about that because Stan has had a bad reputation. And we are blind to the fact that we have net homes in our cities, in our suburbs, in our cul-de-sacs. I was surprised, I shouldn't have been, but I was surprised there was a big drug bust less than a quarter mile from my house. Because I live in a bubble, like most of us live in a bubble. It's time to kind of like put our heads out once in a while and look at that and allow the police force to do their job. At first I was real skeptical about a canine, but the fact that we have an officer that's able to do it, that sounds like a great thing. That will help track down because the message that our city needs to send out to our residents and to people using our town as a drop-off spot is we don't tolerate it anymore. So that was my point for tonight.
Thank you.
Mr. Crowe?
Yeah, I didn't have a question. As far as, I'm talking about decriminalization, I don't believe in any way, but the question I have, if, first off, when we send somebody to jail, right, who pays for their, who pays for their incarceration, do we just the city jail, and incur that charge for waiting or putting that person in jail or they go to trial?
You do pay a fee to the county that contributes to the incarceration, as do all of the municipalities in the county.
Now, and I'm not advocating, I'm just really, if you stop somebody and they have marijuana, we say, well, I'm marijuana. Yeah. That gives you probable cause to search the rest of the car. Right? You find nothing else, no criminal in that situation. What is your standard as a police force on how you handle it? Do you treat it as do you incarcerate, or do you basically cite and release?
Yeah, so the 2 ways that we do it, cite and release, as a special law test that they're on the table. A lot of times, it depends on the intention. I mean, we don't find this in the car, but we know that people that have a training. It's just 24 hours. Right. We just decide. And then we don't get now, we say we don't find things hard anymore. We have a warrant, we run through a right here, we don't have a warrant. Of course, we don't listen to the warrant, and then if we needed to, whether they have to stop the protocols, if we go for a violation, whatever, we do that and write a warrant for the marijuana. Right. So we don't just, we're just gonna live their life.
Right, like I said, I pretty much understood that. I think that's a standing protocol in the county also, Judge Biggett, and I'm saying in front of the judge, Mr. Binline, the biggest issue right now is the jail and coding in jail. Okay, so the less people sent to the jail, the happier the judge is. Okay, because it is a real problem. And so I want everyone to hear the clarification of exactly what actually takes place. Oh, yeah, last time got the dog. I spoke to the chief. And our biggest concern was what kind of dog are we gonna get? And the dog, one dog we don't need is, even if it's a new type dog, we don't need a shepherd. Okay? Because it sets the wrong image for the citizens.
I believe it.
It isn't.
We're considering a lab, is that correct, officer?
Yep, you need to be a line item for a urban short hair food. Like all the dogs, we already figured out which canine we want to get them from. The local guy who would come here and train me here in the city with this dog, all kinds of weed work, I can go here along with work. And he gets all of his dogs from Germany. He's actually in Germany right now. He finds a female lab that fits what we like. And as soon as the dog say yes or no, he can have that dog back on play with him to Georgia. Another thing that we also in October, we here tonight, this dog is non-resident with this dog. We're gonna do demos. Everything's on. Do demos right here.
And that's the big thing is the image there. And I know it may not sound like it, but the image that's presented is just as important as the aesthetic of the dog has. Because, you know, people in our city, they see the shepherds, what they're gonna do is they're gonna reflect past price. And we need to dispel that image, and this sounds like an absolutely, super, progression.
My father raised me, there's a purpose for every tool. You use it for that purpose, it's a good thing, because you can use a tool as a weapon. So if you take a dog and you use it as a weapon, the citizens are they're gonna realize that. I think as Councilman had stated about Officer Russo, he has the right demeanor and the right purpose, so, but thank you.
Mr. McMahon, I wanted to speak.
Keep it brief and speak as a team. One, I wanted to mention that what's legal in Georgia is not from marijuana. Nowhere in the country is, let me take it back. In the state of Georgia, medical marijuana is THC oil. Originally proposed, CBD oil proposed at 0.03%. And after going through the legislation process and actually said that it needed to be 0.05%. When it got approved at 0.5%. Okay, and that is a significant increase from a percentage standpoint. That is available for all 17 medical conditions, in addition to dialects, which also prescription drug procedures.
We're talking oil only though, right? Oil.
That's correct. CBD oil with up to 5% THC, which is the highest percentage in the entire United States.
I'm just saying, so if somebody actually had marijuana and a marijuana card.
And the Department of Health is issuing marijuana cards, and the Attorney General's office is actually working on cultivation and distribution. That's all in process right now.
So what you're saying, excuse me, is that it was supposed to have been approved at 0.05 and a typo.
They were thinking
Apparently made
0.03 to 0.05. And they passed it at 0.5.
At 0.5.
That's how much percentage?
3/10 of 1%, 5%.
Yeah.
And that means Georgia, the highest percentage in the entire United States, including the original states that it counts.
Can't put that genie back in the bottle.
And the law also allows for up to 20 fluid ounces on your possession. That's a significant volume. 20 ounces. So from a community standpoint, I think probably if somebody's following the law already, they'll have access to that very shortly. Where we access. The second point that I want to make is from a business owner standpoint. I own 2 properties over across the street from the Dollar General, so I'm a huge advocate of the restriping, the lighting, and the crosswalks. That's great for every city. But in the last few months, where we've been over there on 2 separate occasions, we had one gentleman walking down the street smoking a joint. Walked right up to my wife and my 14-year-old and asked them, would they like to specifically share the joint and buy marijuana? Right out while we were working. Another time while I was there, another gentleman walking through the drive, specifically asked me if I would like to buy drugs. And when I didn't respond, he said marijuana, cocaine, or meth. I have whatever you need. And then he proceeded to walk across the street to the Dollar General. So from a business owner perspective, he was very interested in economic development of state. Very vested interest. We can see state succeed in every way. For those reasons, I highly support the state presence in state. And I think that if we are not saying that we are a drug-free community, then we are saying that we're drug safe. And I would love to share some additional information with the mayor, the commissioners, and the city staff, because I think that there's a misconception when it comes to drugs about what's actually happening. And the organization that I work with, Praxis, we not only track in Georgia, we track nationwide. We get high intensity trafficking reports every 6 months from all different parts of the regions in the country. And there are 7 Mexican cartels operating in the state of Georgia. There's one new cartel that's operating that didn't exist 5 years ago. That our understanding is they're bringing about 150 metric tons of drugs into Atlanta that is being distributed up and down the East Coast. You know, we're only, 37 miles from the edge of the right. So it's definitely impacting our community. They just did a drug bust of 18 people out of 23 agencies to track them down. And when I looked at that information, like you said, I didn't even consider that as a drug bust compared to what I've seen. It's not uncommon to find 50 to 100 kilos of drugs in an average drug bust today in the state of Georgia. So whatever we can do to keep our community safe, we have a moral obligation to do that. And I think it's a wonderful idea. The age of onset in Georgia is 10 years old. To have the ability to have a non-aggressive canine unit be able to patrol our schools sets the expectation at a young age. We're just not going to put up with that. And you're absolutely right. One of the biggest problems is not really smoke marijuana anymore. It's evidence and it's fake things, and fake things can have up to 98% THC. That is just critically dangerous to our kids.
They also have the stickers that they get passed out to the kids. It's got, so they put on the tongue, it's got some kind of drug in it. Is it not spent on LSD?
So, I'm Annie. My background is a licensed clinical social worker. I specialize in substance abuse, particularly with adolescents. And then for the last 15 years, I became a preventionist. So I maintained my licensure, so I worked with folks who have already developed addiction, as well as now focused on prevention. So when I say, I'm here for the term hard drug, and that's been around forever, there is no soft drug. There's really no such thing. Our number one killers are illegal drugs. That is tobacco, alcohol, and prescription drugs. Okay? Alcohol still kills more than all the other illegal drugs combined. That is our number one killer. When we're talking about a green wave, let's make another drug legal so we can have more deaths. That's my view of it. Another 3, I have one to say on the minor, I have one there 3, I have one minor there. Middle school and minor there, kids are vaping on the back of the buses. They don't know what's in the vape pens. And there last year, and I know some of you know this, I'm down. There was 5 students found unresponsive at our high school level. They had been medically transported because they didn't know what they had smoked in the vape pen. But imagine walking in and finding a student right down on the floor. So it's a serious issue. I've been doing prevention
we're just launching our final year of, a campaign to prevent marijuana use and decrease binge drinking for 18 to 25 levels. I run a prevention alliance work group. I would love anybody who wants more information to have the conversations like you're talking about what's really going on with legalized marijuana. I'll be happy to sit down and talk to you about it. And I gave you some of that information because the research is out there. But if you know, a lot of times they try to memorize their money. I'll tell you right now, Colorado, for every dollar they bring in, they're spending 2.6 in treatment and fatalities and getting people who think it's okay to smoke and drive. So I'm a resource, I'm here. I work for the Council on Marijuana Drugs, the director of the Prevention Department. Like I said, we have a group right here in Marion County. In fact, I just got a meeting today at 3:30. Please keep me out and I'm happy to answer questions.
Also, let's keep in mind, a lot of the people that are sitting in this room are relatively new to the community. Okay? They will tell you, and Hattie will tell you, Salem, because of its location, has had drug issues for a long time. Yes, they've morphed and changed and redesigned themselves. And is it getting worse? Only our police department can speak to that. But we've had our problems here. It's still, after just shy of 40 years of living here, let's not downplay the fact that this is a great community. I had plenty of opportunity to move away from here, and I absolutely choose not to. I've had to rebuild myself 3 times since I lived here, as far as my work is concerned. But I love this place. I love what it provides us. I love what access we have to the rest of the state. You know, we want to fight for this community, and we're here to be a part of both your department and city council as far as accomplishing things. Now, sometimes.
Yeah, Mayor, I hate to do this, and I hate to say this, Mr. Krause, but you've actually exceeded your allotted time by double. So.
Mr. Crowley?
I was going to chief some, what he's doing behind me, kind of answer to my question.
Okay.
But I will say this. I agree with Councilman Corey. Essentially, the marijuana is done. It's just what's happening. This will be here, and we just know we can do that. This is what happens. Only it's going to be here in state, it's going to be in state of Georgia. But we don't need to underline the police department by doing their job, by their oath given to the state, federal, to obey the law and you know, keep the law going in the right direction. We didn't let them do their job. So I'm completely, right now, completely against the marijuana department right now. Because right now it's against the law. Like it or not, it's against the law. But the red light, that's against the law, the red light. Until it gets approved, just wait for that time to come. Medical marijuana, if you don't have medical marijuana with sold, you will have a call that the doctor will go get you. But in my knowledge, Georgia has passed the medical marijuana, but they don't have a place to dispense it, that you can buy it from.
He was saying only the oil.
That's not coming, I'm going to the oil, that's not coming. I
don't know where
you can't buy nothing.
Miss Haley.
As a man.
Yeah, I was trying to ask you, where is the oil?
Okay, thank you.
Here.
Mayor, I think we've kind of strayed pretty far afield here. I think we've actually, we're hitting the repetitive point.
Anyone else?
No, that's it.
I've got one last question. Chief. Yes, sir. One more question for you. What's the turnaround time once the funds are available for a dollar? Officer Rizzo, what is the turnaround time once funds are available to purchase a dollar? The turnaround time for the dollar where it's in production on the streets?
We'll be actually ready.
To be ready. If you guys approve it, I would start academy to April 1st. It would be 4 to 6 weeks. So that includes more contract development and also includes the project. So that's the 12,000. Yes, so that includes everything.
12,000, including training, dog, package.
Yes, sir, and that price is standard across. I was trained in Alabama, I was Alabama Canine, and the state paid around 13,000 for me to go there. The best thing about this person is you guys don't have to send me anywhere. This guy would come here, and it's the same training that Auburn uses, and Auburn, Sergeant Scott has one of the best dogs around. So we're gonna use it, ours are gonna be, but we're gonna use that.
I get name.
We're gonna use that trainer, and he will come here, and on my off days during the week, I'll go where he's at, or he'll be here. It'll be 4 to 6 weeks, depending on how long it takes me to go. Figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay.
It could be a lab or a pointer.
It'll be up to friends looking. Y'all don't have to pay the fees.
All right. So last on the list is, we have the minutes, draft minutes for January 19th meeting. Everyone had an opportunity to read over them, any corrections or issues with it.
May I make the motion to approve January 19th, 2021 minutes as written?
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous? No, you didn't? Oh, you didn't? I thought I saw your hand. I thought that. Are you abstaining or?
Just to know because I don't agree with something this day.
No. Did you want a correction?
I don't think it would be correct. This was the Walton property.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second. Second. All those in favor?
Hands up.
All right, unanimous on that one. Thank you all.